Amber Barno, who joins us via Skype this morning. Amber, thanks so much for joining us here on America's Forum. So good to have you.
Thanks for having me.
So what do you think about Bob McDonnell? Do you think this is a wise decision?
I do. I think this is going to be a welcome change for the Department of Veterans Affairs. I think mixing up the status quo and sort of putting a different person rather than a career military general officer, sort of putting someone in who does have military experience, is a veteran himself, but also has extensive experience in leading a business. He's the former chief executive officer of Procter & Gamble, so he really knows how to make things work, and he understands leadership. He's had that corporate experience, and I think we'll hopefully see some positive results from him out of the VA.
Now, there seems to be an overwhelming majority of people seem to support this decision, but there has been a little concern. Paul Rieckhoff, the chief executive of Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America, has mixed feelings about this decision, saying he's concerned that McDonnell doesn't have any medical experience and is not familiar with the current wars that these veterans have faced, like Iraq and Afghanistan.
That's not necessarily a top priority when it comes to leading the Department of Veterans Affairs. What we need here is leadership, someone who can take a calcified bureaucracy that's been failing veterans and has had this terrible culture been allowed to fester inside it for so long. We need someone who can change that. He's going to have all sorts of medical appointees that he can then help manage the medical side of things. And so that to me is not as critical. And I'm also not concerned that he doesn't have any experience in the Iraq or Afghanistan wars. He's a veteran himself. He went to West Point. He served our nation. He was in the 82nd Airborne. He is very pro-veteran. He is one himself, and I think he has the experience. You don't necessarily need someone who is career military and has done it for 30 years. So sometimes I almost feel like that's a negative, because you get a general who is basically a little too far immersed in the bureaucracy and isn't able to make any change. So that's why I think this is a step in the right direction.
So, Amber, the talk is now that just about everybody was surprised by this decision. When did you first get wind of this? Was it something that you knew was coming down the pike, or did this decision surprise you?
No, I was surprised as well. It was a good surprise. I definitely was leaning more towards, I thought it was going to be the typical, what we've seen over the past couple decades as far as career military officers. I thought the administration was probably going to go down that route as well. But I think that it's a good sign that the administration recognizes that, the standard person, putting the standard person in there, it isn't working, and so they're going to try something different, and I think that is an important step, especially out of the administration, just for recognition. They've got to change it up if they want to see real results, positive results coming out of the VA.
Well, we heard House Speaker John Boehner praise the pick here, and Bob McDonnell is supposed to have an easy time through the Senate confirmation process, but Amber, what will you kind of look for to determine whether or not this is in fact the right choice? What type of concrete steps do you want to see happening at VA medical centers around the country so that you know and other vets know that positive changes are actually being made?
Well, I want to see step one, accountability. Also, basically, so he understands that he is going to have to change up some of those top level, the SES, the senior executive service employees, and bring in some new management, because that's really where the culture is going to shift. We've seen all sorts of unethical practices and mismanagement, and so that's really where he's going to have to start, is changing up those personnel and bringing in fresh leadership at the VA and sort of start over and create a culture where employees don't feel like they're going to get retaliated against, or they're going to have to work under all of these sorts of unethical practices. So accountability, step number one, transparency, working well with oversight with Congress, and really turning the VA back into a customer service oriented organization rather than this, deeply systemic, terrible bureaucracy that's been hurting veterans. So it's going to be some very rough road ahead and some tough work, but I think that he's willing to get his hands dirty and make some necessary changes.
Are you concerned at all when he left Procter & Gamble, when McDonald did? There was a little bit of controversy surrounding that. Some people believe that, they were losing confidence that he didn't have the ability to expand the company in the face of an increasing global competition. Does that concern you at all?
No, I would say the biggest concern I have is the bureaucracy issue. It's not like a private company, but we all wish it would be a little bit more. It would be much more efficient. So I think there's sort of some pros and cons to that in terms of him possibly changing the bureaucracy, but I also think he's going to reach everything every other secretary has faced, which is the red tape, the willing to turn your head the other way because that's the easy route instead of taking the hard route. So we'll just have to see. I think that it is good that he doesn't necessarily have that much experience in running a bureaucracy because he's going to change things up. That's the only way that he's going to be able to proceed. And he knows that eyes are on right now at the VA, and him being nominated as secretary is not a quick fix at all. It's going to be a rough road ahead of him.
So Amber, you mentioned the bureaucracy, and we've heard in the world of munitions about bunker busters. You believe basically this new VA secretary has to be a bureaucracy buster to tear this apart, at least philosophically. John mentioned earlier that Speaker Boehner was happy with the decision. We should point out that of course, the new VA secretary comes from Cincinnati, right there where Boehner grew up, and his donations have been to Republicans. So it appears that for those who yearn for a bipartisan solution, it appears that the president has gone outside his comfort zone and picked someone who at least is a contributing Republican to try and solve the problem. Do you think this was important atmospherically, attitudinally for the president to reach beyond the partisan,
Republican, right?
Yeah, well,
Instead
to pick a Republican or to reach beyond the usual suspects who show up in these kind of discussions?
I do. I mean, I think anything at that level is going to be political. I think that the administration has been very disappointed with the negative attention this entire VA scandal has brought them. But I think that it is a good sign that they sort of went outside party lines and possibly just picked someone who they thought was going to be the best for the VA, which then ultimately will be the best for veterans. That is what I would like to think that this is all about. And that's what I hope is going to happen, but only time will tell.
In fact, he actually supported Mitt Romney as well.
Right, he donated to Romney's campaign, and of course, a situation where the problem needs to be solved. And obviously, there is a lot of work to do, both inside and outside the bureaucracy. With a minute and a half remaining, Amber Barno, this may not be on your radar screen, but I saw reports of this over the weekend. You're a former Army helicopter pilot. When I was serving in Congress, a young lady came down from the White Mountain Apache Indian Reservation saying, "Congressman, it's high time an Apache, a real-life Apache, piloted an Apache helicopter." Have you heard the talk that some people are taking umbrage at the designation of the Apache helicopter as Apache? Has that crossed your desk this week?
Yeah, I actually read that opinion article about how that, especially with the Washington Redskins controversy, and now they're going after the names of the military and Army helicopters specifically. That's absolutely ridiculous. I was a OH-58 Delta Kiowa Warrior helicopter. I think they're named in tribute to these different.
Point well taken, Amber. Absolutely. We hate to shorten it up, but there is breaking news from the Supreme Court. A ruling by the High Court, 5-4. Employees cannot be required to contribute to unions. Justice Samuel Alito writing that opinion. Obviously, there is more we need to talk about here, and we will do so on the other side of this break. As news continues to come in from the Supreme Court, we'll have it for you next here on America's Forum.